It was a moonlit night and Henry was working with Edward. The big green engine was taking a goods train to the station by the lake. "Whenever that owl hoots, a mist rolls in," murmured Edward. "There's a legend that when the mist's about, there's a ghost about too. Take care on the old line, Henry." "Stupid bird," said Henry. "Owls, mists, ghosts. Edward's going soft in the boiler. There's no mist." But Henry was wrong. "What's that?" cried Henry. "It's an amber lamp," murmured his driver. "That means proceed with caution." "Who's there?" No one replied. Henry crept slowly forward. He stopped by a tree. It had a sign nailed to it, "Beware of the viaduct." The driver was surprised. "No one warned us about that before, and look, the signal's red and the gates are closed. And there's a fogman's coat, but where's its owner?" Then they saw a light move within the station building. "Ghosts!" exclaimed Henry. "Edward was right." "Something very strange is happening," said his driver. "I think it's best we go back." "So do I," agreed Henry. By morning, the mist had cleared. A workman was talking about the unsafe viaduct. "Lucky you didn't cross it last night." "Yes, but we don't know who warned us," replied Henry's driver. Later that day, he spoke to Henry. "The viaduct has been repaired. We can take our train back along the old line tonight." Henry didn't really want to. But when nightfall came, he was sizzling nicely. Suddenly, an owl hooted, and then Gordon thundered by. "Oh, look! Henry's spooked," said a truck, and the others giggled in their silly way. "Be quiet," snapped Henry. "I'm not scared." But he was. A little later, the fog came down. As they approached the same area, they saw the amber light again. "Here we go," said Henry's driver. Then, unbeknown to Henry, the gates mysteriously closed by themselves, and the signal went red. The trucks had seen all, and they were spooked too. "Faster, faster! There's a ghost about!" "Stop! Stop!" yelled Henry. A mysterious figure watched Henry go by. Ahead was a landslide blocking the line. Henry braked hard, but the trucks hit some of the rubble and plunged into the ravine. Just then, Henry's driver saw a strange sight coming towards them. "What's that?" he said. The fireman laughed. "That's our ghost. It's old Bailey, the fogman." Old Bailey was very cross. "I tried to warn you about that viaduct. Why didn't you pay attention?" "We're sorry we ignored your warnings," replied the driver. "Is there anything we can do to thank you?" "I'd like to operate that old station again, if you let me. I promise I won't spook Henry." And in a little while, old Bailey's wish was granted. "You and your station will be really useful," said the Fat Controller. "Let's hear a hearty thank you to the friendliest, ghost on the island." Everyone cheered, especially Henry, who was the happiest of all. Stepney, the Bluebell engine, works closely with his friend Rusty. One day, the Fat Controller came to see him. "Rusty tells me you're in need of change, so I want you to help Toby and Mavis in the quarry." "Oh, thank you, sir," said Stepney. "Shall I be away long?" "Just today," replied the Fat Controller. "But please be careful. It's easy to get lost up there, so be back before dark." "We will," said the driver. Stepney soon arrived at the quarry. "We're glad you're here to help us," said Toby. "Are those my trucks?" asked Stepney eagerly. "Only some of them. There's masses more in the sidings," replied Mavis. "The more the merrier," whistled Stepney. Stepney was really enjoying himself. The dustier he became, the harder he worked. Mavis and Toby were impressed. The quarry foreman spoke to his driver. "We have a night special to take to the building site at the new branch line. Do you want to pull the train?" "Yes, please," said the driver. But he should have asked the Fat Controller first. Night came. "Be careful, Stepney," advised Toby. "I will, and thank you for a lovely day. I do hope I can come back again." "The line can be spooky," said Mavis. "Thank you for the warning." And with that, Stepney puffed away into the night. Stepney arrived on time and made the delivery of rock and stones for the workmen. Then he set off for home. That's when the trouble began. The fog came down. Mavis was right. Suddenly everything does look spooky. There's a signal box. And the signal light is green. Someone must have been expecting us. But they hadn't. The points had been set in the wrong direction, but Stepney didn't realise this. "Home, here we come," he thought. Then they approached an unknown area. The driver made a decision. "It's best if we rest here until the fog clears." What are those strange sounds, wondered Stepney. Then the fog slowly lifted. "Oh no," wailed Stepney, "we're in the scrapyards." His driver and fireman went for help. Stepney was all alone, but not for long. 2 diesels approached. "Got you this time, Stepney. You'll make very fine scrap indeed. Buffer him, Bert." The diesels took him to the large smelter's shed. "Bye-bye, Stepney," said the diesel. Stepney looked up. Above him was a huge grabber. "This engine's not for scrapping," shouted Stepney. The grabber wasn't listening. But just as it was about to grab hold of him, it stopped. There stood the Fat Controller. "It's a good thing I've chosen to visit this yard tonight. Saving you from scrap is getting to be a habit, Stepney. Please stop it." "Yes, sir, but I have learned something." "What's that?" "There's no place like home." "And that's exactly where you're going now." "Bluebells forever," sighed Stepney. It was winter on the island of Sodor. The snow covered fields and railway lines. All the engines were hard at work except Percy. "Come on, Percy, this isn't time to have a rest." "I'm stuck," moaned Percy, "and my funnel's freezing up. Driver's sent for help." "Pah," huffed Thomas, and went on his way. Later, Thomas had to help clear snow by a tunnel, but it was too deep and he got stuck. Thomas was very cross. "Snow is nothing but trouble," he moaned. Rusty was close by. "Driver says that this winter is just about as bad as the worst winter of all." "How worst?" asked Thomas. "I'll tell you," replied Rusty, and the little engine did. Skarloey was working the line to the slate mines in the mountains. When the snow came, it was difficult to work. They used the snow as a double buffer zone to help stop trucks skidding through to the ravine. One day, Skarloey set off to the mines with some empty trucks. Meanwhile, there was trouble at the mine. The winch that hauls the trucks up and down wasn't working properly. Skarloey had reached the ravine. High above him were the mine yards. "That snow looks dangerous," said his driver. "The sound of your engine and the trucks could cause an avalanche. I'll set off an emergency cap and see what happens." Skarloey watched as his driver prepared it. Then they ran over the cap. The bang echoed round the gorge. Nothing happened. "Good," said his driver. "All's well, we'll have a cup of cocoa and then make our way." But high above them, all was not well. A long line of full trucks was about to be winched down the slope. They had just started their journey when some empty trucks became derailed. The winch groaned. "Break it! Snap it!" shouted the trucks. And they did. On, faster, faster," they giggled. "The snowbank and buffers will stop 'em," said a workman. But he was wrong. The trucks plunged into the ravine. Skarloey and his driver heard the noise and looked up. "Avalanche!" they cried. When the snow plume cleared, there was no sign of Skarloey. He was buried deep inside the high drift blocking the ravine. And then came the funny part. "What's the funny part about an avalanche?" asked Thomas. "Well..." No one knew that the heat from Skarloey's engine had helped to make an igloo. "It's a snowball. It's a snow house. It's an engine." They cleared away the ice only to find Skarloey's driver and fireman drinking cocoa as if nothing had happened. Luckily for them, but it just goes to show you can't trust trucks. "Or snow," said Rusty. The men had just cleared the snow away from him when Gordon puffed by with his machine. "Hey, look out, there's snow about," laughed Gordon. He stopped by the tunnel and wheeshed loudly. Then it happened. "Help!" cried Gordon. "If Skarloey survived a snowfall and laughed, surely a big proud engine like you can do the same," chuckled Thomas. Moaned Gordon, and then fell as silent as the snow.